Now, China has told its automakers to stop expansion into Europe, and this comes after there's been back and forth with negotiating the tariff that EU or European Commission wants to impose onto Chinese EV makers like Nio. Now, this statement today we just got, in fact, right now from Bloomberg, indicating that China has just advised their car makers like Nio to stop expansion into Europe, which is something that's not good. It shows that there's still not a solution between the two parties, which is why we are seeing China coming to say to its car makers, like Nio, to say stop expanding into Europe, because the conflicts or the trade conflicts between the two countries continue to escalate, which is something that is not good, something that we do not want to hear, because we wanted to see, of course, opportunities of these Chinese automakers or Chinese EV makers like Nio going to expand further into Europe. Though we know Nio is not doing that well, as the total sales that Europe is contributing into the total monthly deliveries of Nio, it's less than 2%, the amount of cars that Nio is generating in terms of sales on a month to month, which is something that is not much of a significance into Nio's deliveries. And knowing that one of the countries that Nio is selling in Europe, like Norway, it's not participating into this, as China and Europe continues these talks of the tariffs, Norway will continue selling some good, bringing some good deliveries onto Nio, or some good recoveries onto Nio. Though they are not much, but I mean they do have something, or they are contributing some revenues onto Nio. So reading this today of China telling their EV makers or their automakers to stop their expansions into Europe, it's something that is not good, but it's not a train smash, like I said, for companies like Nio, because they are not selling that much, and therefore they won't be impacted by much because of this. As it stands, you'll know that the 20.8%, which is the tariff that Nio is to get if these tariffs are to be imposed onto Chinese EV makers like Nio, it's going to hurt Nio together with other EV companies, because they will have to readjust or make their cars be more expensive in Europe, which is not good. And of course, what they are fighting for Europe is that they want the Chinese automakers to build factories in Europe. And I guess for the Chinese automakers like Nio, it's still very risky to build a factory in Europe, because like what Nio said, what will make sense for them to build a factory in Europe is when they get to the 5,000 sales on a month to month, or when they see Nio or their sub brands generating 5,000 sales on a month to month. It is then for that reason they will do probably a joint venture with a local company and have a factory, or a Nio factory, which will then be supplying the European catering for the European deliveries, which is something that is incredible, something that is massive. But until we get that, Nio is not going to, of course, build their own factories in Europe. There was a rumor, I think 3 weeks ago, which came of saying that Audi is looking at letting go of one of its factory in Europe, and Nio is amongst some of the people that are eyeing at acquiring that factory, which Nio at a later stage said they don't want to comment on the news, which that we don't know if they are disputing or they're indeed maybe looking at acquiring that factory. We have not heard more news since Nio came out and said they are not familiar with that with the issue, which could mean that even if they are involved, it's still very early to comment or say or give details about this news. So yeah, man, these are the latest news that we just got. China just said, hold on, stop. To their companies, they are saying stop expanding into the European countries, because they still a problem they are facing of the tariff increase. I mean, the other updates we received last week or 2 weeks back, China was condemning the European Commission going background and start to talk with individual companies in China, which they say they don't want that. They just want the both countries to have a solid deal that will benefit everyone. You all know that one of the proposals that China had made to Europe is to say all cars to be sold in Europe, they should have a base of around 30,000 euros. So the base selling price for all Chinese imported cars should be 30,000 euros, which of course the EU Commission rejected that, which is something that is not good, right? So they still back and forth. These two countries are still in talks, but as per this article from Bloomberg, which I've just received now, the situation is becoming tense. This tariff issue, it's escalating. They are not getting to a solution, which is something that is not good, right? But I think in the long term, it will fade away. They will find a solid ground, both countries, both parties, and we are going to see companies like Nio being able to expand further into Europe, which is what we want to see. I know Europe right now might not mean much onto Nio, but think about their sub-brands. They could really do very well there in Europe. I mean, already EV companies like Onvo, Firefly, they've got a good potential to do well in Europe, especially Firefly, because still with this 20.8% which Nio is to get should this tariff be implemented. The Nio CEO said they will still succeed with Firefly regardless of this 20.8%, which is something that is bullish, something that's amazing, and it makes me to remain bullish also into the European market, so that in the near future we could see Nio doing exceptionally well in a way that they consider opening a factory, because they will be selling a minimum of 5,000 on a month to month. So yeah, man, this is what we read coming from Bloomberg, which, like I said, it's not good, but hopefully we get to find a solution, or both of these parties, China, European Commission, find a solid ground and they are able to strike a deal which will resolve, or at least bring a relief to EV stocks or EV companies like Nio. Otherwise, with all that, do your own duty before you buy any Chinese EV stock, because I mean, Nio, it's one of the stocks that is quite volatile. It's one of the stocks that is that the short sellers are targeting the most, which is why the trading volume is so high, higher than most of the Chinese, if not all of the Chinese equities. This is something that we have been observing. This is something that is there, and therefore you need to do your own due diligence, so at least you don't get to panic sell when you see sharp falls, sharp drops, but take those sharp falls, sharp drops as opportunities to load the boat. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to give it a thumbs up or a likes button, because it takes me some time to make these videos, and I will really appreciate from the bottom of my heart if you can just hit the likes button and subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell, so that at least you get notified every time I drop the latest Nio news or updates, because this is what this channel is about. Otherwise, God bless you all.